Welcome to the Radical Remission Project Stories That Heal podcast. My name is Kelly A. Turner, and I'm a PhD cancer researcher, New York Times bestselling author of Radical Remission and Radical Hope, and the founder of the Radical Remission Project. In this podcast, it is our honor to bring you inspiring healing stories directly from radical remission survivors themselves, as well as from the amazing doctors and healers they work with.
Hello and welcome to the Stories That Heal podcast. This is Liz Curran, co-director of the Radical Remission Project. Today, I'm looking forward to sharing our special guest, Avinoam Lerner. On this podcast, in interviews with our healers, we highlight practitioners that have seen countless cases of radical remissions in their years of practice. Avinoam Lerner is a cancer trauma and recovery specialist, clinical hypnotherapist, TEDx speaker, and author of The New Cancer Paradigm, Mobilizing the Mind to Heal the Body. His innovative approach to recovery highlights the multidimensional nature of trauma and the need to treat its roots at the level of the subconscious mind. Through his practice workshops and coaching programs, he offers individuals seeking to play a more active role in their recovery a safe, practical, and meaningful and effective path. This path allows those he works with to engage and enlist the creative power of their mind to resolve their triggers at the core, become more resilient, and cultivate a mindset more conducive to healing, recovery, and the quality of life. Welcome, Avinoam, to the podcast. We're so thrilled to have you here and share you with our audience today.
Thank you. It is wonderful to be here with you today.
Excellent. Well, let's get started. We'll talk a little bit about your practice. Why don't we start with how you got into hypnotherapy and then maybe what drove you to work specifically with cancer patients?
Sure. With your permission, let's do it the other way around because then it will make more sense.
Absolutely.
Because my engagement with cancer led me to seek tools, techniques, modalities that can produce an effect, and therefore that's why hypnotherapy came into being. But the story with cancer was not necessarily an obvious one for me. I, at a very young age, experienced lost or witnessed, I should say, someone that I really love, being told that they lost their partner. And I was very young. I was about 6 years old, and I could not really understand what was unfolding in front of me. The person was obviously devastated, and all I felt at that very tender age was the desire to make it all better, because that was someone that I looked up to. But I was 6 years old, couldn't do much then, but something burned into my mind, and that something was the way, the look that she had in her eyes. That stayed with me for so many years. And fast forward many years, when I completed my education in holistic health, I was very fortunate to work with two groups of people with unique emotional needs. One of them was Holocaust survivors, and the other one was terminal cancer patients. And what really caught me almost unprepared, by surprise, I should say, it was just the look that the terminal cancer patients had in their eyes. It transported me right back to when I was 6 years old. It was the exact same look that particular person, that woman, being told that her husband has passed away. It's the same look, and that was the look of loss, of something that was taken from them. And it just clicked on me, because back then and there I was 6 years old and helpless and couldn't do much. But now I had tools. Now I had the education. Now I had the desire and the drive to apply what I have learned to support these people. And I've never looked back. So that's why cancer patients, or cancer in general, and I've been focusing on cancer and trauma for the past 23 years. I think it would make sense, at least for me, that there is an intersection between trauma and cancer. And so I was very curious, how can I provide my clients with a much needed relief that they needed? How can I help their body, the body's campaign for healing how can I make it more effective? How can I enhance their experience? And that's when hypnotherapy came into play because, and we might talk about a little bit about it later, because I work in the realm of the mind. I'm not a mental health provider, but I am a holistic practitioner. And I use hypnotherapy as a key to access the door of the part of the mind we call the subconscious mind. And so much like a surgeon will use a scalpel to cut into the body to perform surgery, I use hypnotherapy as a key to the door of the subconscious mind because it is the part of our mind that governs many of our bodily functions like digestion, heartbeat, body temperature, and everything in between. And it is also the part of the mind that governs, in part, the functioning of our immune system. So extremely important when we talk about cancer or healing cancer and recovery. And so that's in a nutshell why cancer and why hypnotherapy.
Yeah, that's a really moving story. I can see how that experience as a kid really kind of propelled you into the work. And I can speak from similar experience that, when you are touched by someone in that case, you're just propelled into it. There's no choice. It just is. Right.
Yeah,
So really beautiful to hear that story. And thank you for sharing it.
thank you.
Sometimes we'll remind our listeners about Dr. Turner's research on radical remission survivors that ultimately led to finding these 10 common healing factors. And I just like to reiterate them for the audience to hear them once more. So to list out those factors, we have the physical factors, which are changing your diet, increasing or taking herbs and supplements, and exercise and movement. The emotional factors of increasing positive emotions and releasing suppressed emotions, the spiritual factors of following your intuition and increasing your spiritual connection, and then the mental factors, having strong reasons for living, empowerment, and social support. And listening to these 10 lifestyle changes from Radical Remission, how do you see these factors playing a role in your practice with your patients?
This is why I really love being here today, because I feel there's amazing synergy between Dr. Kelly's findings and my practice. In fact, many of my clients have read Radical Remission, and it is the reason why they seek me out in the first place, because it essentially, the work embodies, I think, at least 7 out of the 10 factors. We
Beautiful.
start with taking more control over your experience, and this is done by playing a more significant role in your healing and recovery journey. Addressing intuition, more to the very principle of the work, releasing suppressed emotions. It's one thing to know that this is what you need to do. It's a whole other thing to find someone who can actually help you do that. So it's no surprising to me that so many of the people, my clients that have read Radical Remission and were inspired by Dr. Kelly's work, have found their way into my practice. And we talk about the resolve, strengthening the resolve to heal. We talk about one's will to live. We talk about all these different aspects that span, I think, across the 10 radical remission factors. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'm so grateful that you are a beautiful resource for that releasing suppressed emotions factor, because that does come up so frequently. People will focus on that one. And we always say there's no order of importance. It depends on the person and what they need to work on. But that one does very consistently come up in workshops and coaching and just people's experience. And, it's a reflection on our society, obviously, our level of stress, and, add a cancer diagnosis onto that. It really can become, quite a bit. So I'm very grateful for the work that you do.
Thank
Do you
you.
want to
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to take an opportunity to share a case study or two about someone in your practice that has overcome the odds of their diagnosis?
Yeah, well, when you said pick, a couple of cases, I said, where do I start? I want to talk about all of them because they're so, I wouldn't say, I mean, it's just extremely rewarding, obviously, from my perspective, but for every one of my clients, each person, as you know, is a whole wide world for their loved ones. And to be able to guide someone back, and I want to I want to be very clear. We are not working specifically on the physical expression of cancer. In other words, the tumor itself. That's the realm of medical treatment. What I do based on research is I provide my clients an evidence-based approach to address those mental and psychological patterns that we know through research suppress the functioning of our immune system, eventually diminishing it to such a point where it's rendering the body vulnerable to disease agents and carcinogens. So this is what we do. I can tell you about Karen, and Karen is very much thriving 5 years after her initial diagnosis, and she was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And for me, it always comes down, or for my clients, I will say that and then express or share a little bit about the conscious and subconscious mind, because I think it will be very meaningful. Karen was struggled immensely with everything that was self-nourishing. Breast cancer, as you know, has each cancer location can have some meaning behind it. If we talk about the breast, which is a source of nourishment, then very often it will mean we are struggling with patterns of self-nourishment, self-care, and so forth. When we talk about other cancers, we talk about other expression or other limitations. But for Karen, she grew up in a home where her dad was not very present, was very often angry and sometimes violent, and certainly not warm. He was, in fact, his work was in the force, as a policeman, and he retired early because of an injury, and he was just a very challenging person to be near and certainly have as a father. And because of that, there was a lot of trouble at home. And her mom was not entirely stable emotionally as well because of that, and caring for 4 kids was overwhelming. And so there wasn't a lot of intimacy and warmth and even attention to go around. We all, I tend to say that we all have this inner pendulum that will swing based on our upbringing. If we grew up in a home that was emotionally challenging, we experience a lot of emotional pain, the pendulum will swing more into the intellect, into the realm of the mind and thoughts, academics, and so forth. If we grew up in a home that was kind of very rigid and cold, perhaps lacking some nourishment, we will tend to swing toward the professions or the experiences that have more emotional nurturing component. For Karen, her way to compensate was to excel in her academics, in her studies, and that came at a cost, because very often people become, at least for her, in her case, she became very much a perfectionist, very rigid in her ways, almost prided herself in self-deprivation, right? The ability to go without emotional nourishment. And we know that one of those, we know through research, this big word called psychoneuroimmunology, we know that one of the factors that is impacting in a negative way our body's ability to defend against cancer or the functioning of our immune system is grief over deprivation. And so there was a lot of that going on for her. At first, these patterns of self-deprivation or priding ourselves of the ability to go without, when we are young, they're very much like a shield protecting us from the world outside. But when we grow up, this shield almost at some point become our flag, our identity. And it's a challenge for us because we don't necessarily know when it's happening. We can't say, oh, that's the moment when my defense patterns became my identity. We don't know. We don't do this consciously, obviously. And so when she came into the office, these are the things that we had to address, and very successfully, because she was able to really resolve a lot of these limitations that she has placed on herself as a result of the pain that she has experienced. And resolving these limitations meant that she could begin to thrive and practice a better relationship with herself and witness herself in a new way. And therefore, some of these patterns have resolved. And as a result, her immune system perked up. her numbers, blood count, and so forth went into the positive, and she is very much thriving. I just checked in with her the other day just to make sure I have my papers in orders, and it's just such a joy because cancer for people that have moved on, it never really disappears, but it fades into the background. And doing this kind of work allow it to fade really far back. It's kind of a distant memory. And so it's not at the forefront. Not every ache and pain kind of triggers us into, oh my God, what is that? And what is, so this is extremely powerful and rewarding. And I was very privileged to just be in her corner and facilitate that. But she did all the work. And another example would be Steve. Steve is another client that I just checked in. And he reminded me, we are 6 years out. And
Beautiful.
Steve struggled with tonsil cancer. And again, if we talk about the correlation of location and the emotions behind it, Steve grew up in a home that was difficult. His dad was alcoholic and a smoker. And on the one hand, Steve loved him because he did try to be present. But on the other hand, he despised him because he suffered his beating and frustrations and abuse. And so he had this love and hate relationship with his father. And Steve's mother just presented a different texture. She did everything because she loved him dearly, him and his siblings. But she was also afraid of his dad. And as such, he felt that she threw him under the bus at every opportunity and didn't stand for him. And he tried to get in between their fights, and which were sometimes violent. And it just broke his heart, and he lost his voice. So it's so interesting that he struggled later on with tonsil cancer, and he lost his voice, right, as a child. And so I see these correlations very often, and it's not anything conscious. We don't do this consciously. We don't, aim to have illness one type or another. But it's just this correlation I've seen over the 23 years that I've been doing this work. I've seen some patterns, and they're quite remarkable. So, when the Radical Remission book came out, I was thrilled because someone put it into words. Someone actually made sense of it in a way that,
Right.
When I talk about it, people will say, well, it's anecdotal, it's this. Well, 23 years of anecdotes, I mean, it's a little long for that, right? I mean,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was thrilled that the book came out and that it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it really validates the power of the mind, right? Because only out of the 10 factors, only 3 are physical. So it really does validate the work you do and so many others. And to hear that, really reaffirmed in your work is really beautiful. So I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you see themes across, I mean, obviously you're speaking by diagnosis. Do you see themes across cancer patients in general that show up with kind of this desire to focus on their releasing suppressed emotions factor?
The main theme that I would say uh, that I see is a certain belief. And again, maybe today we won't necessarily have the time to talk about the conscious and subconscious mind, but when we come into this world, we learn certain things about ourselves by the people that raise us, and everybody has the best intention, but sometimes it's just not enough. And I would say that the belief that comes up the most often for my clients is the belief that someone or somebody will be better off without them here.
Interesting.
They did the math as kids, and obviously they can only get it a certain way because when we are growing up, our mental and psychological faculties are not yet fully developed. We can't really see the picture in its true context, but they put one and one together in that respect, that before they came here, they learned that there was love. Their parents were in love, and that's why they got together. And if after they have arrived, that love isn't thriving, in other words, there is trouble at home, kids put one and one together and very often tend to blame themselves for what's going on, even though it has nothing to do with them, because adult problems are adult problems. And The kids very often are the blessing or the glue that puts people or hold people together in place. But as kids, we can't see it. There was,
Right.
there was love before, there's pain now. What has changed? Well, I came into this world. So this belief, which is insidious, is really very, very, comes up very often for patients. Yeah.
Now, do you see that present as, people pleasing and worthiness issues, stuff like that?
Very often, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all been said and done, the C word, the disease of the nice people, right? It
Mm.
all stemmed from our struggle with our self-value and worth. If there were troubles, we didn't feel worthy of asking for our needs. We didn't get the nourishment that we needed, and that can impact us in different ways. So absolutely, all these words, all these cliches are true. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've never heard it said, the disease of the nice people, but I think that's a
Certainly not
very
mine.
accurate description.
Yes, yes, yes. People that tend to put other people's needs first, that will very happily care for other people while not attending to themselves, that have not been taught how to listen to their body, which is very
Mm.
often why they will push themselves really, really hard and only go to the doctor when everything already collapsed, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, and it's just unfortunate, but it's what we have learned. So that's why I mentioned that the work is cancer and trauma recovery, because there is this intersection. If we have been wounded um, when we were young, it impacted our self-image, the way that we view ourselves, the way that we feel about ourselves, and it kind of set into motion a whole trajectory of, if I don't feel worthy of speaking up, then I will not ask for what I need. And then it expresses itself in the workplace and in relationships and in all kind of dynamics. And it's just, there's no mysticism here. We live in a reality of cause and effect. So in many ways, what I help clients do is begin to live more authentically and more aligned with our true core values, really kind of shed all the extra weight that they have put on to defend themselves against the world. And in doing so, their biology has an immediate correlate response. And that's because the subconscious mind, and again, now is not the time to talk about the conscious and subconscious mind. I will just say that the conscious mind is the objective mind. It deals with the outside, with objective reality. And the subconscious mind is the subjective mind. And the conscious mind, which is kind of the captain of the ship, can give command to the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind will activate the body accordingly. But we were never taught about this relationship. So and still, many of us are utilizing this relationship. We do this when we worry. So whenever someone tells me, well, I don't know what you're talking about, all I have to do is ask them, do you worry? Oh, yeah, I worried a lot. And so what do you do when you worry? Well, essentially, we are using the higher mental faculties of our conscious mind, specifically imagination, to craft some doomsday scenario. And then we don't intentionally do it, but we infuse this doomsday scenario with fear, with anxiety, so the conscious mind is logical and rational. The subconscious mind is emotional. When we marry thoughts and emotions, we send information into the body. Unintentionally, if we have been wounded, this has been going on for many years. And then one day, if you leave a bucket outside to collect raindrops, it might take 1 season, 10 seasons, 50 seasons. It will eventually overflow. And that's when illness shifts from the invisible to the visible.
Daytar Cancer Genetics is a global leader in developing blood-based oncology panels that can detect cancer, identify treatment options for improved outcomes, and assess remission status. With facilities in Europe, Asia, and the United States, Daytar Cancer Genetics believes that through relentless research, bold initiatives, sustained commitment, and an unapologetic determination to succeed against cancer, innovations will continue to be made to help defeat the disease. Stop undergoing unnecessary invasive procedures and having your cancer treated through a trial and error approach. Through a simple blood draw, Datar Cancer Genetics award-winning platforms can accurately diagnose cancer, develop a treatment plan tailored to your cancer's individual composition, and detect a cancer recurrence prior to imaging. To learn more about Datar's tests, please contact Chad, their Director of Business Development, via the email in the show notes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your book, The New Cancer Paradigm. It introduces a new perspective that focuses on the body's innate ability to fight against and heal from illness and how we can strengthen it by utilizing the connection between the subconscious mind and the immune system. Can you share a little bit more about your experience using psychoneuroimmunology to maximize the efficacy of modern medical cancer treatments and improve odds of full recovery?
Sure. Thank you. That was a mouthful.
I was.
Yes. In a nutshell, I would say that, and every one of your listeners know this if they've been through this, cancer affect us on many different dimensions. Yes, the physical dimension, that's the realm of the physical body. That's where the crisis is, and that's what we are treating with medical treatment, which is incredibly important. But cancer also impacts us mentally, emotionally, some of us spiritually. So the point of the book, The New Cancer Paradigm, is to help people shift from just focusing on the physical to also addressing the mind. Because if we, in the healing equation, which has the physical, the mental, the emotional, if we only address one part of this healing equation, in other words, the physical through medical treatment, and we fail to address these other realms or other parts of who we are, these other aspects of our experience, then we're going to get partial results, hence recurrences. So the very goal of this work is not only to support the body's campaign for healing and recovery by enhancing or strengthening the body's immune system, but also by preventing, or we deal with prevention by addressing the deep-seated patterns that have promoted this condition to begin with. So it's a twofold. We're kind of working toward healing and wellness by strengthening the immune system, and we also work to prevent this illness from resurfacing after treatment is over by addressing the innate conditions or the patterns that have originated some of the vulnerability that the body had to deal with. So psychoneuroimmunology essentially is a field of scientific study that have proven back in the early 70s that the immune system can be conditioned. And they've done these experiments on rodents, and it's all online. People can read it. These experiments were done in the University of Rochester in New York, and since have been replicated throughout the world. And it's a thriving field of research, which your oncologist will not necessarily tell you about. It's just because it's not their scope of practice. But nevertheless, it proved that we can actually condition our immune system to either diminish or to be enhanced. And life tends to do the diminishing component. We have to do the enhancing component. And that's what we do in the office. I think an easier way to understand this is that if we talk about a piece of steel that is magnetized, right? Mm-hmm. So when we have a piece of steel that is just a regular piece of steel, it can't even lift a feather. But if we charge it with some electricity, if we magnetize it, it can lift many times its own weight. So from my perspective, a mind that is magnetized, which means, so when we magnetize a piece of steel, we don't change the steel. It's still the same steel. We just reorder the electrons. When the mind is magnetized, we're still the same person. We just have to reorder our thoughts and beliefs to express differently. And when a person is magnetized, they are more resilient. They can thrive. They have more energy. They can wake up in the morning without that knot in their stomach. They can continue to be that beacon of light to their loved ones, not someone that everyone have to tiptoe around. I mean, it's a whole different, it's a different state of being. And then this kind of experience position them for a more favorable outcome. That's kind of the whole story in a nutshell. We have to magnetize the mind to bring about a different expression, because the mind is the cause and the body is the effect.
I love that. And what a great way to, show that kind of the cause and the effect, but in the middle is the work, right? That middle piece of taking that person who may be, a people pleaser or have really low self-worth, and then kind of quote energizing them, reworking their electrons, if you will, and
Absolutely.
and really we do that through I like to introduce that to people through the power of these lifestyle changes, because they are they can be seen as little changes in your life, like just a choice that you make, whether it's to eat differently, whether it's to begin meditating or start seeing, a practitioner
Absolutely.
for therapy. And then these changes really activate some empowerment. And then
Yes.
they realize that they're not just victim to, the patterns that they had as a child, and they really become so self-actualized and really it's so beautiful to see someone who has come from that place of um, lack of worthiness, I'm just going to go with, and to see them become empowered and have the ability to stand up for themselves and believe in themselves and love themselves in such a different way
Yeah.
than they had just not long before. It's really powerful.
Absolutely. I think the thing I want, if someone just remember what I'm going to say now, they already are in a better place. My message is that it's not about fighting cancer. There's no war on cancer, because that which we resist persists, right?
Mm.
So this emotional pain that we have about who we are, this self-concept that is distorted, we're trying to push away from it. This is not about fighting this or cancer or anything else. It's about aligning ourselves with the truth of life principle. What that simply means with consciousness of health, of being whole and healthy and healed already. And so it's not about fighting something, but rather it's about aligning yourself with health consciousness. And what does that mean? It means contemplating everything that is of good nature, everything that is of enhancement and expansion and beauty and comfort. And I mean, you can go on and on, but it's a different way to be. If I try to fight something, I spend a lot of energy trying to manage it and deal with it. I want you to stop doing that, and I want you to kind of focus inward and recognize there's a life principle flowing through us at every second of every minute of every hour of every day. That life principle fashioned every organ in our body from an invisible cell. That life principle is like a watchmaker. It had produced or manufactured every bit and piece that goes into the watch. If the watch stops working for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that it's broken. I mean, it is broken because it stopped working, but it doesn't mean it can't be fixed. You take it to the watchmaker, to someone who repairs the watch, who has the knowledge of how to do that. And in this case, we just have to kind of surrender into it, because this mind of ours that managed every moment of our life until this moment in time, for the most part, have done a remarkable job. Not only when we're awake, also when we're asleep. Our hair is still growing, our digestion is still working, our heart's still beating. I mean, if we just relax into that truth, instead of trying to kind of affect change in the outer world, we will be better off in so many wonderful ways. And it is not difficult to do. It's just, again, like you said, reordering the molecules or the electrons in that respect. Yes, that's all that it requires to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you reminded me of a quote from Kristen Neff, the self-compassion researcher. She had this quote, pain plus resistance equals suffering.
Oh, I love it.
It's
And
so
suffering, we know.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
But if you
Because,
take that same pain and if you don't resist it, if you embrace it and you empower yourself, pain being, for example, in this situation, a cancer diagnosis, you can fall into this place of despair and then you suffer. But a lot of these radical remission survivors get the diagnosis and they say, no way, that's not what's going to happen to me. And they become empowered, and then that equals healing. And I really love that. I think it's such a simple concept, but it's really powerful to really think about, where's the pain and then what do you choose next?
Absolutely. Wonderful. Yeah, beautiful quote. I didn't hear it before, but now I'm going to look for it. I've learned
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I
Thank
don't know
you.
where I collected that one. It just stuck with me years ago, but yeah, she's good for that one.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't know why it's such a kind of a almost like a different concept for us to experience to think of suffering, because suffering is essentially a mental and emotional experience.
Right.
So yeah, we can heal the body, but what about suffering, right? So what is it made of? How can we undo these patterns that are fueling our suffering? Can we
Right.
change the quality of these patterns so that they can produce joy and gratitude and love and everything in between? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So tell me this, for those who are listening that, perhaps aren't at the place where they're seeking a practitioner, but everybody should be working on mental resilience day to day, right? So what do you recommend, and what do you do in your personal practice to kind of enhance your mental resilience and with the perspective of, health and longevity on mind?
Mm. Well, thank you. This is yeah. So let's start with, I call them rituals, daily rituals. And
Okay.
when people hear the word ritual, they go into, all kind of occult stuff. But no, brushing our teeth twice a day is a ritual, daily ritual. So I start the morning with a one-page gratitude practice. I don't know, we don't have the time today to talk about the frequency of gratitude, the information or the emotional signature of gratitude, but it's just of everything that is lovely, of good nature. And so when we when I wake up, it's clear to me that I may not be in the right frequency or in the right state. So if you remember these old radios with the tubes that you had to
Mm-hmm.
dial, and in between there was this static, right?
Right.
So I very often wake up in the static. For whatever reason, I just had a dream, or I don't even know why. So I dial myself into an empowered frequency, whether it's joy, whether it's delight, whether it's gratitude. It's a high performance frequency that is correlating with harmony and health. So that's my first go-to. I don't go without. And it's really important to say this is not philosophy. This is not poetry. I'm just so happy and grateful that I have a roof over my head, clean water coming out of the tap, because I travel the world and not everyone have these things that we take for granted. So
Right.
I feel it's very easy to take nourishment from things that are indisputable. They're currently here and now, and clean water coming out my tap. And I live in Boston, so it's cold here. I love to step into a warm shower. It's such a privilege, and so I just focus on things that are working and worthwhile and are very easy to acknowledge as true. My mind doesn't reject them. And so I activate myself in that way. Throughout the day, I tend to listen to my body. I will take breaks when needed. Um, I will care for myself in whichever way that feels right, if I can, and if there are periods of times where something is more demanding, that's fine. But I will make sure that I pay attention. I love tapping. I don't know if you guys talked about tapping in your podcast, but
Yeah, please
EFT,
share.
emotional freedom technique. I love it. It's such a practical way to do this. And exercise is one of the factors in the radical remission. Absolutely. There are so many beautiful ways to cultivate a healthier relationship with ourselves. And I think that's the key. What do we do? Do we wake up and just start functioning in an automatic kind of way? Do we just fold yesterday into today, and therefore we're going to get a lot more of yesterday, or we're going to create something new? And to create something new, we have to step into an unknown place within us. And for me, that's the most exciting part of the day, focusing inward. So hopefully it will inspire someone in that direction.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. How do you find yourself checking in? What does that look like for you as far as just checking in internally?
I think this is where, again, one of the factors, intuition, comes into play. I pay attention to my levels of energy. I tend to feed myself food that is more or less healthy. This is not about being saintly in any sort of way. It's just about taking care of this physical body. And, I will say that our emotions are just like gauges on the dashboard of the car. If one of the lights come up, you pay attention. And that's what I do. I can tell you that what I picked up recently, and I'm not spring chicken, I picked up baking because I don't have to eat what I bake, but I love the process. And so whatever, whatever do this to you, for you, with whatever enhances your experience, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, as we kind of head toward our wrap up here, we always like to ask if you could spin any advice for someone. Do you have any advice for someone who is new to a healing journey on how to start incorporating these lifestyle changes, or, what would you recommend to someone that's new to all of this holistic lifestyle?
Yeah, to be very curious. For some reason, when we grew up, we were not given permission to be very curious, and it was perceived as we are annoying, or like, oh, why are you asking me this? And they were
Right.
asking so many. So we have learned to dim our light in so many difficult ways. Curiosity is just the first step on this path. And then it's just to feel their way through, meaning when you engage with practitioners, ask as many questions as you want. There's this wonderful author, Bernie Siegel, you might be familiar with, and he coined the term exceptional patients many years ago. And from his perspective, these were patients, because he was a medical provider. These were patients who were a pain in the ass of the medical team, right? They asked a lot of questions. They wanted to be a part of the process. They wanted to be part of the decision-making process. And so I would encourage anyone who's just starting out, talk to any practitioner, ask as many questions as you want. I do free consultations because of that. And these are 45 minutes consultations. People can ask me everything, and there's full transparency. If a practitioner is not able to answer your questions just right away off the cuff, and if they're not transparent, and if you feel that they're trying to sell you something rather than find or get to your truth, then you should pay attention. It's your intuition telling you, this may not be the right place for you. But if you find a practitioner that you feel resonates with you, you do some reading about them, and you see that they have traveled this path for a while, and they have the experience, then dig deeper, because, again, your intuition is speaking to you that this might be the right path forward.
Perfect. Yeah. A little empowerment, a little intuition definitely
Absolutely.
gets you a long way in the beginning.
Yeah, I told you, when the book came out, the Radical Remission book came out, I was like dancing, doing a little dance, because I said, finally someone put in the words, and it doesn't have to be me. And now people can read and be informed and make an informed decision about what kind of care might be right for them.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, if our listeners would like to reach out, connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you? Where can they find you? How can they find you?
I think the easiest resource is my website, avinoamlerner.com. I know it's a little mouthful in and of itself, but maybe there will be a link on your show, on the podcast. It's avinoamlerner.com. And I've got decades of resources available for people to learn about what's possible, to inspire them to I have a product that might be of value to them, all kind of self-hypnosis recordings that can help them prepare for surgery and chemotherapy and radiation and everything in between, and other tools, other programs. There is the in-person 3-day intensive program that is designed to help patients enhance the functioning of their immune system. And then there's the online program, similar name to the Radical Remission, a little different. It's called the Mindful Remission online program, and it's an 8-week-long protocol. And we work together. We do a lot of really deep work right there, whether it's in person or online. And most importantly, we get the job done, which is maybe at another time we can share more inspiring stories of people that thrived, not just survived treatment, but thrived through treatment and continue to thrive till this day, because, yeah, very much needed. So you guys and your work and the Radical Remission Project in and of itself is an incredible resource for anyone in need. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that little plug as well.
Sure.
Do you want to share about the topic of your TED Talk we mentioned in your bio?
The TED Talk was about the missing piece in cancer recovery and relating specifically to the realm of the subconscious mind, because medicine is constantly trying to catch up with what the mind knows how to do. So the mind is the most brilliant pharmacy in the world. It can tell the brain to produce the right drug, any kind of drug, and disperse it into the right location in the body. There's never an overdose. So medicine is not a written and done story, even though sometimes oncologists would like to present it as such. The truth is that every medical breakthrough that happens, and they happen very often, literally rewrite the story. So yes, absolutely, medical treatment is important, valuable, meaningful. But in my TEDx talk, I talk about the realm of the subconscious mind and using hypnotherapy and this therapeutic model that addresses the root cause of illness. And some would find it provocative. I think it's very much aligned with my findings over the past few decades, and it's available on my website, on my YouTube channel, and people can access it from anywhere.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your work with us. You are truly an inspiration. And thank you to all of our listeners. If you want more inspiring stories of healing, be sure to follow, share, review, like this podcast on your preferred platform. And if you have your own inspiring story of a radical remission, please visit radicalremission.com and complete the Share Your Story form.
And thank you for listening to the Radical Remission Project, Stories That Heal podcast. Once again, I'm Kelly A. Turner, PhD, cancer researcher and founder of the Radical Remission Project. If you found today's episode inspiring, we encourage you to share it with anyone you think would benefit. If you'd like more information about the Radical Remission Project, or would like some support bringing the 10 Radical Remission healing factors into your own life, visit us at radicalremission.com to find a certified Radical Remission health coach or to learn about an upcoming Radical Remission workshop. And if you'd like to connect with Liz or Carla directly for health coaching, you can visit radicalremission.com/about us. Most importantly, be sure to like, share, and please, please, please review this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews are what allow us to keep finding sponsors, and sponsors are what allow us to keep bringing you these podcasts. So thank you in advance for your reviews. One last thing, would you like to be on our podcast? If you're a radical remission survivor who's been in remission for at least 3 years, meaning that you either have stable or dormant disease, or perhaps even no evidence of disease, you can contact us at radicalremission.com/podcast. The Stories That Heal podcast is a production of the Radical Remission Project and Cat Productions, hosted by Liz Curran and Carla Mans-Giroux, produced by Ryan Giroux, music by Batchbug. Follow The Stories That Heal wherever you get your podcasts.